He wanted something I could never give him. When I said no, he turned my sister against me, twisting every truth, every memory, until I became the villain in my own family. But I didn't break. I watched him destroy himself with the same lies he used to trap me. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about finding power in pain and turning silence into strength. I'm Emma, and this is how I took my voice back. Stay till the end, because sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's the peace they never get to have again. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe for more true stories of women who refuse to be broken. Los Angeles glowed that evening the way it always did, the city pretending to be kind while hiding its own cruelty behind sunset skies. I remember watching the light fade through the tall windows of my sister's house, thinking everything in her world looked perfect. Her laughter floated through the kitchen, the smell of rosemary chicken filled the air, and Ryan, her husband, leaned against the counter, watching me with that easy, charming grin that once fooled us all. I used to think he was the best thing that ever happened to her. Everyone did. Ryan was the man who opened doors, poured wine before anyone asked, remembered birthdays, and never showed anger. Not in public. But behind that smile was something I couldn't name yet, something that made the air feel heavier whenever he looked at me too long. That night, as I helped Lila set the table, Ryan brushed past me, his arm grazing mine. It wasn't accidental. I knew the difference between a mistake and a message. His hand lingered for just a moment too long, his breath warm near my ear as he whispered, "Red suits you, Emma." My stomach nodded. I forced a smile, pretending not to hear. Lila walked in seconds later, carrying a salad bowl, laughing about something on her phone. She didn't see how I stepped away, how I pressed my trembling hands against the counter to steady myself. He didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, the comments grew bolder. "Emma, you've really grown into yourself. Does anyone tell you how stunning you are? Or, you should visit us more often. I miss your company when Lila's busy." At first, I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, that maybe Ryan was just friendly, that maybe my own insecurities were twisting harmless words into something sinister. But I knew better. Because one night, when Lila was out with friends, I stopped by their house to drop off some paperwork she'd forgotten for her studio. Ryan answered the door in sweatpants, holding a glass of whiskey. His grin widened like he'd been waiting for me. "Lila's not here," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "But you can come in. Stay for a drink." The tone in his voice, slow, deep, soaked in arrogance, made my skin crawl. I shook my head. "No, I just came to drop this off." He reached for the folder in my hands, his fingers brushing against mine. Deliberate, slow. "You know, Emma, you don't have to be so uptight around me. We're family." He said family, like it was a joke. I stepped back, my heart pounding. "You're right, Ryan. That's exactly what we are. So don't make me regret coming here." For a second, his eyes hardened, a flicker of something cold, ugly, and entitled. Then, just as quickly, he smiled again. "Relax. I was just teasing." But I saw through the mask. That night, I sat in my car outside their house, staring at the reflection of my face in the windshield. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to grip the steering wheel just to stop them. Something inside me whispered, "This is not going to end here." Over the next days, his messages started coming. First on social media, harmless compliments that anyone could see. Then private ones. "I can't stop thinking about you. You're too beautiful to be alone. I could treat you better than anyone else ever will." I blocked him. But somehow he kept finding ways, new accounts, anonymous numbers, little reminders that he could reach me whenever he wanted. When I finally confronted him in person, it was at a family dinner. Lila was in the kitchen. Ryan was refilling his glass. I caught his wrist mid-pour. "Stop this," I hissed under my breath. "If you ever message me again, I'll tell Lila." He looked down at me with a smirk that didn't belong to the man my sister married. "Tell her what, Emma?" That you can't handle a little attention? You're disgusting, I snapped. His smile disappeared. You'll regret rejecting me, he said quietly, his tone suddenly stripped of all pretense. Lila believes everything I say. Something in me froze. It wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. That night I didn't sleep. The city lights outside my apartment blurred. Through tears, I didn't even realize I was crying. Because deep down, I knew what kind of man he really was. And I knew that if he couldn't have me, he'd make sure to destroy me. The next few days were strange, quiet but sharp, like walking barefoot on glass. Lila texted less. Ryan stopped messaging, which should have felt like relief. But instead, it felt like the calm before a storm. I tried to convince myself that maybe he'd finally understood. Maybe fear had silenced him. But deep down, I knew better. Men like Ryan didn't stop. They recalculated. Then it started. Small, subtle changes. Lila canceled our coffee plans twice in a row. When we did meet, her eyes darted between her phone and me, her smile polite but distant. So, Ryan said you've been acting weird lately, she said one morning, stirring her latte. The words hit me like a slap. What? I blinked. Weird how? She shrugged. I don't know. He just said you seemed uncomfortable around him. Like you don't trust him or something. I felt the blood drain from my face. Lila, I don't trust him. He's not who you think he is. Her brows furrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means he's been crossing lines. Sending me messages saying things that... Stop. Her voice was low but sharp enough to slice through my sentence. Ryan wouldn't do that. He loves me, Emma. You're probably just misreading him. The words misreading him echoed in my head like a cruel joke. Lila, I have screenshots, I whispered. My throat felt tight, my palms sweaty. Do you want me to show you? She hesitated, her eyes flickering. No, she said finally, standing up. I don't want to see anything. You're overreacting. Ryan told me you've been lonely lately. Maybe you took his kindness the wrong way. Her voice cracked on that last line, not out of sadness, but embarrassment. For me. She walked away, leaving me sitting there, frozen. People around us kept talking, laughing, sipping coffee, unaware that my world had just cracked open. Over the next few weeks, Ryan's manipulation deepened. He was clever, planting little seeds of doubt inside my sister's heart. He'd tell her stories about how I'd flirted or looked jealous of their marriage. And Lila, blinded by love and pride, watered those lies until they bloomed into resentment. One night, she showed up at my apartment, eyes red from crying. Did you tell Mom that Ryan hit on you? She demanded. What? Of course not, I said, stunned. Who told you that? Ryan did. He said you've been obsessed with him, trying to make him look bad because he rejected you. I stepped back like she'd physically hit me. Rejected me? I repeated, my voice shaking. He's the one who... Stop lying, she screamed. He showed me your messages. My knees almost buckled. What messages? Then I realized he'd faked them. That's when I understood how deep his cruelty ran. He didn't just want me silenced. He wanted me erased. I spent days locked inside my apartment, the city noise outside muffled under the weight of my heartbreak. I couldn't eat, couldn't think. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was Lila, but she didn't call. When I finally gathered the strength to visit my parents, they looked at me with quiet confusion. Emma, Mom said softly, Lila told us everything. Maybe it's best if you and Ryan stay distant for now. We don't want any more drama. I stared at her. Drama? I whispered. He's lying. He's destroying my reputation. Dad cut in gently. Emma, sometimes it's better to stay silent than to fight with family. Silent. That word lodged itself deep in my throat. Because silence was exactly what Ryan wanted. That night, I went to the ocean, the only place in Los Angeles that still felt honest. I sat on the cold sand, hugging my knees, the waves crashing like applause for a play I didn't audition for. I cried until my throat burned, not just for myself, but for my sister, for the girl I'd shared secrets with under the covers, who now looked at me like I was her enemy. Somewhere between the sobs, I whispered, "You'll pay for this, Ryan." It wasn't anger. It was a promise. Quiet, steady, deadly calm. He thought I'd disappear under the weight of his lies.
But he didn't know me.
People say truth always finds a way out. But in my world, lies spread faster than wildfire, and the truth sat buried beneath the ashes, choking for air. It started showing up everywhere. Subtle at first. My colleagues whispering when I walked past. Invitations that used to flood my inbox suddenly vanished. Even my best friend, Mia, seemed hesitant when she spoke to me. One afternoon, she finally said it. I don't know what's happening, but people are talking. They're saying you tried to come between Lila and Ryan. My heart stopped.
Who told you that?
She hesitated. Someone from your sister's circle. Apparently, Ryan showed them screenshots. My mouth went dry. Fake screenshots. Edited conversations. He'd turned my silence into guilt. Do you believe it? I whispered. Mia's eyes softened. Of course not.
But, you need to say something.
Defend yourself. I shook my head. If I fight back, he'll twist it again. He's already got everyone believing him. I could see the pity in her eyes, that quiet sadness people wear when they think you've lost the battle. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying everything. The messages, Lila's tears, Ryan's smirk. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside me, everything was quiet. Dead quiet. Weeks passed. Every attempt to talk to Lila ended in shouting. She wouldn't look at me anymore. Her words cut deeper than Ryan's lies ever could. You're jealous, Emma. She spat one day when I showed up at her house. You've always been jealous of my marriage, my home, my life. I froze at the doorway, my voice barely a whisper. I'm jealous of the man who harasses me, the one who's destroying us. Her eyes glistened, but not with sympathy. You ruined everything. And then, she slammed the door in my face. The sound echoed down the hallway, sharp and final. For a while, I disappeared. I stopped visiting my parents, stopped answering texts, stopped showing up to work. I spent days in darkness, blinds shut, phone on silent, every mirror covered because I couldn't stand to see the woman I'd become. It wasn't just shame. It was exhaustion. How do you keep fighting when no one wants to believe you? Sometimes, I'd replay Ryan's threat in my head. You'll regret rejecting me. He'd meant it. He'd turn my sister against me, my family, my friends, my entire life. I was alone.
Completely.
One night, after another day spent drowning in my own silence, I opened my laptop and stared at his social media profile. He was still posting pictures with Lila, dinners, vacations, sunsets, every image perfectly curated. He looked untouchable. But in one photo, something caught my eye, a reflection in the glass behind him. Another woman, half visible, sitting close beside him. Her face wasn't clear, but her body language was familiar. Intimate. A chill ran through me. Of course. He wasn't faithful to Lila, he never was. That night, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg anyone to believe me. If Ryan could create lies, I could find truth. And I'd use that truth to destroy him, slowly, carefully, the way he did to me. The next morning, I got up early, showered, and looked at myself in the mirror for the first time in weeks. My eyes were tired, but different, steadier. I whispered to my reflection, "You took everything from me, Ryan. Now I'll take what matters most to you." And just like that, the woman who'd been broken started coming back to life. There's a certain kind of silence that follows heartbreak. Not the fragile kind that begs for comfort, but the sharp, deliberate kind you build yourself. When you decide you'll never be a victim again. That's where I was.
Cold.
Still. Focused. I started with what I already knew. Ryan's patterns, his timing, his weaknesses. Every narcissist has them. The way they underestimate women who refuse to scream. For months, I had kept the screenshots, the messages, the call logs. Every trace he'd left behind when he thought I'd never fight back. Now, those tiny pieces of evidence became my weapons. But I needed more. Because if I exposed him too early, he'd twist it again. And this time, I wanted his destruction to be undeniable. It began with a simple text to my friend Mia. I need a favor. No questions asked. She didn't hesitate. Whatever you need. Mia worked in a digital marketing firm. She knew things about privacy, metadata, and how to make deleted messages come back from the dead. When I explained what Ryan had done, she just stared at me for a long moment, then said, "We'll get him, Em. I promise." We began to dig. Fake accounts. Private messages. Duplicate SIM records. It didn't take long before we discovered the truth I had suspected. Ryan wasn't just unfaithful. He was reckless. There were messages between him and multiple women. Some from dating apps. Some from work. One in particular stood out. Sierra. A woman who didn't know he was married. Her messages were sweet, trusting, filled with plans for the future. He'd told her his marriage was over. That he was living with his wife for appearances. It made me sick, but it also gave me leverage. For weeks, I collected everything: screenshots, emails, voice recordings. I followed his public movements through tagged photos and check-ins, learning his routine. I saw the cracks forming in his perfect facade. He'd started to look tired, distracted. Maybe the lies were catching up to him. Or maybe he could feel my silence watching him. Then came my first real move. I created an anonymous account. Using one of the photos he'd posted with Sierra, I wrote, "Funny how the truth hides in plain sight. Wonder what your wife would say about this." I didn't tag him, didn't expose names, just enough to plant a seed of fear. Within hours, Ryan deleted every new photo he'd posted. He even messaged Lila on social media, writing, "Ignore any fake accounts spreading rumors. Some people just can't move on." It almost made me smile. He was nervous.
Good.
A few days later, I ran into Lila by accident at a cafe near her studio. I almost turned to leave, but something inside me whispered, "Face her." She looked exhausted, her once radiant face pale, her smile forced. "Emma," she said, voice tight, "I didn't expect to see you here." I nodded. "You look tired," she sighed, stirring her coffee. "Ryan's been stressed lately. Someone's been spreading things about him online." I tilted my head. Maybe because there's truth to it. Her eyes shot up. "Don't start this again." I leaned closer, my voice soft but steady. "You think I'm the enemy, Lila. But one day, you'll see what he really is. And when you do, I'll still be here." She didn't answer, but I saw something flicker behind her eyes. A fracture. A hesitation. The first crack in his control. That night, Mia called me. "I found something," she said. "You might want to see this." It was a video, Ryan, leaving a restaurant with Sierra. His hand around her waist. His wedding ring clearly visible. Perfect. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully. Not because the pain was gone, but because I finally had something stronger than fear. Proof. And I wasn't just going to show it to Lila. I was going to make the whole world see the truth he built his lies upon. By the time the leaves began to fade in Los Angeles, that brief illusion of autumn the city likes to pretend it has, I'd learned to breathe again. Not freely, not yet, but enough to steady the ache. I had the evidence. And I had patience. Two things Ryan never thought I could possess. For weeks, I watched his life like a spectator at a play I once starred in. He still smiled for cameras, still posted perfect dinners with Lila. But now, I could see the cracks, the tension in his jaw, the hollow eyes when he thought no one was looking.
He was slipping.
And I didn't need to rush him. Men like Ryan always set their own traps. I just had to give him the rope. One evening, I called Mia. "It's time," I said. We decided to leak the first thread carefully through an anonymous Reddit post. A story titled, "My Married Boss is Leading a Double Life." No names. No identifying details. Just enough truth to draw attention. Within hours, it exploded. People commented, speculating, sharing screenshots from accounts that sounded eerily like his. And then one woman replied, "This sounds exactly like someone I'm seeing right now. His name's Ryan. He's married to a woman named Lila." I froze. Mia gasped on the phone. The woman had unknowingly revealed everything. Dozens of users began digging, finding his social profiles, linking photos, cross-referencing timestamps. By morning, the thread had gone viral, and Ryan's name was trending, attached to words like liar, cheater, and predator. My phone buzzed endlessly that day. Mia sent links. Old friends texted, "Is this your sister's husband?" Even Lila called, the first time in months. "Emma," she whispered. Her voice trembled. "Did you do this?" I paused. "Do what?" "This post. Everyone's talking. Ryan says it's a setup. He says you're trying to destroy him." I took a breath, keeping my voice calm. "Lila, all I ever tried to do was protect you. Maybe it's time you stop protecting him." She didn't respond right away. I could hear her crying quietly through the line. Then, in a whisper I barely caught, she said, "I found the messages. The ones you warned me about." My chest tightened. "What did you see?" "He was meeting other women. Not just one, Emma. So many." Her sob broke. "He even used my car." My heart split for her, not out of pity, but sisterhood. Because I'd missed her, even through the hate. "I'm sorry, Lila," I whispered. "You didn't deserve any of this." "No," she said bitterly. "He doesn't deserve us." That was the moment the story changed. Lila, for the first time, stopped defending him. But Ryan wasn't done. That night, he showed up at my apartment. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. He pounded on the door until I opened it. His face was pale, furious. "What the hell did you do?" he shouted. "You think you can ruin me?" I crossed my arms, calm. "You ruined yourself, Ryan." He stepped closer, his voice low. "You think anyone will believe you're innocent in all this? You're just a jealous little girl who couldn't handle rejection." I stared straight into his eyes. "You keep saying rejection like it's power. But the truth, Ryan, is you're terrified of women who see through you." He laughed, cold and bitter. "You won't win." "Then why are you sweating?" I asked softly. He froze. For a second, the arrogance slipped, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Fear. Then he stormed off. And for the first time since it all began, I didn't feel small. I felt free. Over the next few days, the fallout hit him like a hurricane. The company he worked for suspended him pending investigation. His clients dropped out. Even his so-called friends unfollowed him online. Lila moved out quietly, taking only her clothes and their dog. She didn't call me, but she didn't have to. I knew. The empire he built on lies was crumbling brick by brick. And me? I didn't post. Didn't gloat.
Didn't need to.
Because revenge isn't always about noise. Sometimes it's about silence, the kind that follows when a man realizes no one believes him anymore. Morning in Los Angeles used to sound like hope. Birds over the city, coffee brewing, the hum of lives chasing dreams. But for Ryan, the mornings had turned into whispers and locked doors. He was no longer the man smiling in family photos. He was the man people crossed the street to avoid. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I could finally breathe. It started small. Lila sent me a photo one morning. A notice from his company. Suspended indefinitely pending investigation into inappropriate conduct. Just seeing those words made my chest tighten. Not in guilt. In justice. He's losing everything, she texted. And I don't even feel sorry. Neither did I. But I didn't tell her that. Instead, I replied, just take care of yourself, Lil. Don't look back. Still, even destruction has an echo. And Ryan wasn't finished screaming into the void. He started sending me long, desperate emails.
Some angry.
Some pleading. Some that sounded like the voice of a man losing his grip on reality. You think this makes you powerful? You've ruined my life. Lila's gone. My career's gone. Everyone's turned on me. Are you happy now? The first time I read one, my hands shook. Not because I was afraid, but because I could finally feel the shift. The power I'd once lost was coming back, piece by piece. I didn't reply. He didn't deserve my words. Meanwhile, Lila was changing too. When she called, her voice carried both guilt and strength. Emma, I don't know how I didn't see it, she said one night, crying softly through the phone. He isolated me from everyone.
From you.
I believed him over my own sister. I swallowed hard. You believed the man you loved. That doesn't make you weak. It makes him cruel. She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, he told me once that you'd regret rejecting him. Now I think he's the one living that regret. For the first time in months, I smiled. But Ryan wasn't built to accept defeat. The thing about men like him, when their lives collapse, they still look for someone to drag down into the rubble. He started appearing at Lila's workplace, waiting outside her car, apologizing, crying, shouting, all in one breath. She filed a restraining order. The police escorted him away twice. Each time, he sent her another message.
We can fix this.
Don't listen to Emma. She's poisoning you. But she didn't reply. Lila was finally free too. Then one afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, there was silence, then a low, broken voice. Emma, please. I need to talk. Ryan. Every instinct in me said to hang up. But part of me, the part that needed closure, stayed on the line. What do you want? I asked flatly. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he said. His voice cracked. I lost control. You made me feel something I couldn't explain. I felt bile rise in my throat. Don't flatter yourself. What you felt was power. And now that it's gone, you're calling it love. You ruined me, he hissed suddenly. You think this makes you better? I exhaled slowly. No, Ryan. It just makes me free. And then I hung up. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. Weeks passed. He lost his job completely. Sierra, his affair partner, filed harassment claims. Lila filed for divorce and moved into a small apartment near the coast, her laughter slowly returning when we talked. And me? I went back to my art studio. The same one I had abandoned when everything fell apart. I painted again. Bright colors, fierce strokes. Every canvas was a piece of my healing. Sometimes I still caught myself thinking about him. Not out of longing, but disbelief. How easily charm could disguise rot. How close I came to letting his lies destroy me forever. But then I remembered the look in his eyes that last night we spoke. The flicker of realization that he had finally met someone he couldn't manipulate. That was enough. One evening, Lila and I stood at the pier, the ocean wind brushing against our faces. The sun dipped low, painting the water in gold. She turned to me. Do you ever regret what happened? I looked at her, my sister, whole again. No, I said softly. Some monsters don't die unless you burn down their masks first. She nodded slowly, tears glinting in her eyes. Then she whispered, Thank you for not giving up on me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. There's something about dawn in Los Angeles. The way the sky blushes before it wakes. The faint hum of the city, still half dreaming. For months, that light felt like a stranger to me. Now it felt like a friend coming home. It had been almost a year since everything fell apart. And somehow, Everything was finally falling into place. The first morning I opened my studio again. I stood in front of the blank canvas for what felt like hours. The smell of paint, the creak of the easel, the quiet. It all felt like therapy. When I finally pressed the first stroke of color across the surface, something in me broke open and bloomed at once. I painted every emotion I'd swallowed: rage, grief, humiliation, resilience. Each layer was a confession, each shade a scar that no longer hurt to touch. By the time I was done, the canvas looked like fire. And for the first time in months, I didn't see pain. I saw power. My art started attracting attention again. A local gallery owner named Marcus reached out after seeing one of my pieces online. He wanted to feature my collection. He called it Survivor's Skin. I almost laughed at how fitting that name was. At the opening, I stood in a soft silver dress, my heart thudding as people moved around the paintings, whispering words like raw and haunting. I caught my reflection in the gallery window. Same face, same eyes, but a woman who'd crawled through hell and learned to build wings out of the ashes. Lila showed up halfway through the evening. Her hair was shorter, her smile real again. She carried a small bouquet of white lilies. "I thought these might suit you," she said with a shy smile. "They do," I whispered. "You do." We hugged for a long time, the kind of hug that doesn't erase the past but forgives it. She pulled back and said, "You know, I found his old journal." My chest tensed. "Ryan's?" She nodded. "I didn't read all of it, just the last page." She hesitated, then continued. "He wrote, she saw through me. And that's what I'll never forgive her for." I went quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Then maybe that's what destroyed him, truth." After the gallery event, I walked home under the soft city lights. It was the same route I used to take after visiting Lila, the same streets that had witnessed my tears. But tonight, they felt different. They felt like mine again. I passed a small park bench where I'd once sat, shaking after one of his taunts. Now I sat there again, but this time I smiled. Because every place that had held my pain was becoming a monument to my survival. Weeks later, Lila started volunteering at a women's shelter. She said helping others gave her purpose. She invited me to join, and I did. Together, we listened to stories some eerily similar to ours. Women whose abusers hid behind charm, money, or the mask of family. And as they spoke, I realized something powerful. What once felt like my shame had become my strength to guide others. One woman asked me, tears in her eyes, "How did you get through it?" I told her, "By remembering that the version of me they tried to destroy doesn't exist anymore. What survived is stronger, and she doesn't owe anyone her silence." Then one evening, a letter arrived. No return address. No name. Just my first name written in familiar handwriting. I froze. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper. A few words scrawled unevenly. "You were right about me. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know, I finally see what I became." No signature. But I didn't need one. For a long moment, I stared at it. My heart strangely still. There was no satisfaction, no bitterness. Just the quiet truth that closure doesn't always come from apologies. Sometimes it comes from peace. I folded the letter, walked outside, and watched the ocean swallow the last of the sunset. Then I let the paper go, watching it drift away with the tide. That night, as I stood by my studio window, I whispered to the city, "You can't always choose who tries to break you, but you can always choose who you become after." The stars blinked faintly in response, as if the universe itself nodded in agreement. It's strange how healing doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or applause. It just arrives quietly, in the way you laugh without forcing it, in the way mornings stop feeling heavy, and in the way silence no longer feels like a punishment. That's how I knew I was free. Months passed. The world kept spinning, and I kept creating. My art became a mirror not just of pain, but of recovery. Women from all over started messaging me, saying my paintings made them feel seen, that their stories finally had colors too. One day, I got invited to speak at a women's empowerment event in downtown Los Angeles. I almost said no. Public speaking had never been my thing. But something inside me whispered, "This is your moment, Emma." So I went. Standing on that stage, the lights blinding, the microphone cold in my hand, I looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces, some smiling, some scarred, all strong. And I told them my truth. A year ago, I was made to believe I was the villain in my own story. I was lied about, humiliated, and turned into someone I barely recognized. But what I've learned is this: the truth always finds its way back, no matter how many lies try to bury it. The audience was silent, listening. When someone tries to break you, it's not because you're weak. It's because you carry something they can't control: your voice, your worth, your light. They'll twist your story, use your silence against you, and call your boundaries betrayal. But please remember this: saying no is not cruel. Protecting yourself is not selfish. And survival is not shame. I paused, feeling my voice tremble. I lost people I loved. I lost parts of myself I thought I'd never get back. But I found something better. I found peace that doesn't depend on anyone's apology. When I finished, the crowd stood. Some clapped. Some cried. But what moved me most was the quiet, a sacred, shared understanding between women who had all faced their own versions of Ryan. After the event, a young girl, barely 20, came up to me. Her voice shook as she said, "I didn't think I could leave my situation. But hearing you, I think I can." I hugged her tightly, whispering, "You already have. The moment you decided you deserve better, you began leaving." When she walked away, I realized something profound. Revenge had never been about destroying him. It had been about reclaiming me. A few days later, I visited the beach again. The same one where I'd burned his letter. The waves whispered against the shore. The sunset soft and gold like forgiveness. I sat there, toes buried in the sand, thinking of everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. Lila was happy again. She was seeing someone new, kind, quiet, patient. We talked every week. Sometimes we'd laugh until midnight, remembering who we used to be before the storm. Now, our laughter didn't hide pain. It celebrated survival. As the sky darkened, I whispered into the wind, "I forgive you, Ryan. Not for you, but for me." It wasn't a grand moment, just a release, a soft untying of the last knot inside me. Because I finally understood. Revenge may bring satisfaction, but forgiveness, real, quiet forgiveness, brings peace. I stood up, brushing sand from my hands, and turned back toward the city lights. Each flicker reminded me of women like me, standing up, speaking out, surviving. And I knew my story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to every woman who ever said no and paid the price. Every woman whose truth was twisted. Every woman who decided she would no longer live in the shadows of someone else's lies. This was my story. But maybe, in some way, it's yours too. If you've ever been silenced, doubted, or broken, know that healing is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your freedom. If Emma's story moved you, share this video to remind someone that their no has power. Subscribe for more stories of strength, truth, and healing. Because every voice deserves to be heard.